Welcome to the Cross Creek On Demand podcast, a podcast for you because God is for you. So, the world feels pretty chaotic right now. Everywhere we turn, our news feeds, social media, even conversations with friends, it seems like the world is more divided, more anxious, and more loud than ever. But what if there's a different way to live? A way to stay grounded, calm, and at peace no matter what's happening around you. Jesus invites us to step out of the cycle of outrage and anxiety and stay connected to Him as He forms us into people of love, joy, and peace, which is exactly what the world needs right now. So, let's talk about it together. After all that's happened recently in our world, in our country, maybe even in your own life, let me ask you, how are you doing? Maybe choose one or two words. How are you doing, really? And recent events have also revealed again how divided we all are. Two people can see the same news story, but walk away with completely opposite opinions. It's almost like they are living in two separate realities. Why? Well, because the truth is, we have chosen to live in separate realities. See, more than just informing us, our feeds and the voices we follow are actually forming us, shaping how we see the world and each other. We're formed by whatever we allow to inform us. Our news feeds thrive on outrage, anger, fear keep us clicking, scrolling, and debating. And what does that form in us? Anxiety, polarization, division. We end up with a picture of God who always agrees with us, and a faith that follows our politics instead of guiding them. We know it's unhealthy. We know something has to change. So what if there is a better way? A way of living anchored in peace, not panic. And so here's the big idea I want to talk about today. The voices and rhythms that shape you will determine the fruit of your life. And Jesus offers us a different rhythm, one that transforms us from the inside out. And we can be agents of peace and calm. We can face the turmoil, chaos, confusion with confidence and peace. What if, instead of being shaped by the loudest, most extreme and angry voices, we let Jesus shape us? It's what the church world calls discipleship. See, a disciple isn't just a believer. A disciple is an apprentice, someone intentionally shaped by the teacher they're following. It's letting Jesus shape what we believe, how we feel, act, and love. Jesus invites us to step out of a world shaped by anger and division and into a relationship that forms us with joy, peace, and love. Even for those of us who've followed Jesus for years, it's time to ask, are we really being formed and discipled by Jesus or just the loudest voices around us? So the question for today is, who's discipling you more, Jesus or your feed? When Jesus was about to be arrested and executed, He knew His first disciples were going to be facing a divided and hostile world. So He took him aside, and He told him something that is still vital for us today. See, creating a rhythm of transformation will guide us to a life of love and peace. Here's how Jesus put it. John 15, starting at verse 1. I am the true grapevine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit, and He prunes the branches that do bear fruit, so they will produce even more. You have already been pruned and purified by the message I have given you. So what do you think Jesus means by fruit? It's not just religious activity, but it's real inner transformation. Paul in Galatians 5, he describes it like this. But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. See, the fruit Jesus is talking about is a life where these qualities are seen in our everyday thoughts, actions, and attitudes. Also, fruit includes the impact our lives have on others. What is our life producing for and in others around us? What impact have we made on our world? See, the life of that fruit that we were talking about, isn't that the life we actually long for? A life marked by peace, joy, and real love? And Jesus says He's the source of it. Jesus is the source of the life we were created to live. Anything else only creates the anxiety, sadness, fear we talked about at the beginning. But to experience that life, we have to stay connected to Jesus and allow God to prune us. See, pruning is when God removes anything that drains us or drags us away from who He intends us to be. It might mean rethinking what we watch or listen to or who we listen to, the arguments we chase, or the attitudes we protect. See, pruning can hurt, but it always has a purpose: more fruit, more life. You prune plants and trees to allow the healthy branches to grow, so that the energy of the plant goes to growing healthy shoots and healthy fruit. And think about it. How much energy do we waste worrying about things we can't change, holding grudges, or keeping up appearances? What if those things are actually fruit killers that Jesus wants to cut away? I know for me that as I've let God prune me, I have more peace. I have fewer arguments, and I attempt to see people as opportunities to love rather than an opportunity to win a debate. And there's just more fruit. So take a moment. What's one influence, one habit that drains you more than it feeds you? What would it look like to let Jesus prune that away? See, pruning isn't punishment, it's preparation. The farmer doesn't prune a branch because he's mad at it. No, he wants to help the branch fulfill its purpose, creating fruit. When we allow God to prune us, we're able to put our energy into what really matters: love, joy, peace, patience, in ourselves, in our homes, in our relationships, and in our world. The goal of all this pruning isn't just self-improvement, it's to make room for God's fruit in us. And then Jesus continues, "Remain in me, and I will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine, and you cannot be fruitful unless you remain in me. Yes, I am the vine, you are the branches. Those who remain in me, and I in them, will produce much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me is thrown away like a useless branch and withers. Such branches are gathered into a pile to be burned." If we're connected to the true vine, Jesus, does he say we might bear fruit? No. If we are connected to Jesus, we will bear fruit. If we stay connected to the true vine, Jesus, it's not a question of if. See, fruit is inevitable. But what happens to branches that don't produce fruit? I know I read that and you got a little scared, didn't you? Jesus says they're cut off, they're burned. Why? Because they're pointless. They're just taking up space and resources. These branches have been missing out on their purpose, on living their purpose. They've wasted their lives. In fact, they're not really even branches, right? They're sticks. And the most you can do with them is have a good bonfire. But listen, Jesus isn't threatening people who struggle. He's warning us that if we disconnect from him, our lives lose purpose and vitality. See, discipleship isn't about fear, it's about connection. Connected to Jesus, fruit is inevitable. Disconnected, we wither. So how do we stay connected to the vine? Great question. It's actually not that complicated. Jesus tells us, "But if you remain in me and my words remain in you, you may ask for anything you want and it will be granted. When you produce much fruit, you are my true disciples. This brings great glory to my Father. I have loved you even as the Father has loved me. Remain in my love. When you obey my commandments, you remain in my love, just as I obey my Father's commandments and remain in his love. I have told you these things so that you will be filled with my joy. Yes, your joy will overflow. And this is my commandment: love each other in the same way I have loved you." See, as we hear and meditate on and live out Jesus' teaching, we become more fruitful. He says, if my words remain in you. See, to be a disciple of Jesus, we have to know what he taught. And what are his teachings? What are his words and his commands that we need to learn? He said, love each other the same way I have loved you. We produce fruit by loving like Jesus would if he were living our lives. And when we do that, Jesus says, 3 things happen. First, he says, you may ask for anything you want, and it will be granted. So we get whatever we want if we're loving people? No, Jesus isn't a genie. He's saying if we're connected to him, our desires will begin to reflect his, and our prayers will align with his will, and he will grant those prayers. Second, he says this bearing fruit brings glory to the Father, meaning it shows the world who God really is. It displays his love, patience, kindness, mercy, and generosity. It makes God and who he is famous. And third, Jesus says, it fills us with his joy. Not a perfect and easy life, but a life that has joy that can't be dashed by our circumstances. A life of knowing we are seen, loved, liked, and have a true purpose. bringing love into the world, enjoying peace with God, ourselves, and others. So, think about it. What is shaping you more? Random voices online or the teachings and love of Jesus? One keeps creating anger, anxiety, and violence. The other has created love, joy, and peace for centuries. It inspired the first hospitals and fueled the abolitionist movement. And it still inspires billions of individual acts of love every day. It's a life of slow, unseen growth right where we live. Dishes, diapers, difficult conversations, and quiet obedience. It's the only proven way to reject and defeat the hate, violence, and evil all around us. Apprentice yourself to the God of love. Connect yourself to the Savior of the world, and He will produce fruit in you that will help you change the world. And today, Jesus is inviting you out of angry division and into His own peace and love. Will you take the first step and say, Jesus, be my teacher and king? And then for all of us, here's my invitation this week. 3 things. First, evaluate your inputs and voices. To do that, use Philippians 4:8 as your guide. Fix your thoughts on what is true and honorable and right and pure and lovely and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. So ask, are these voices that I'm allowing to influence me, are they growing good fruit or just growing more anxiety and division? Sadly, many people who call themselves Jesus followers hear a 30 or 15-minute sermon each week, but then spend hours every day being shaped by endless feeds and opinions. If those voices aren't growing good fruit, let them go. Now, second, then create a rhythm of being connected to Jesus. A great way, take 5 minutes each day to read the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5-7, the collection of Jesus' main teachings. Let that start shaping you. You can also read his other teachings in the Gospels and the teachings of his first followers. You could read things written by other voices that you trust. We have a devotional on Substack for families that you can go through with your family. I have a devotional on Amazon that you can find under my name, John Silva. Come back to this podcast and listen. Come on Sundays and join the conversation. Find friends who are also disciples of Jesus, not just in name, but by their fruit. Create a rhythm of being connected to Jesus. And then third, do it. Allow Jesus' words to live in and through you. In every situation, with every decision, ask, what does Jesus' love look like? Because we are invited to be a people of peace in a world of chaos. He promises that when we stay connected to Him, we will give the world exactly what it needs right now: love, peace, and kindness. And that we will experience those things in our own minds, hearts, and lives. What would it be like not to be swayed and overwhelmed by all the opinions out there, but to be continually refreshed and strengthened by true love and peace itself? What if you could still have opinions and views and still love people who disagree? Why? Because you know your worth doesn't come from being right, but from Jesus Himself. You know that your goal isn't to beat the other side, but to shine Jesus' love as brightly as possible. Our world is desperate for the fruit that only Jesus can produce. If we stay connected, our lives will overflow with love, peace, and kindness. So let's become a people of peace in a world of chaos, together. A world in chaos needs a people in rhythm with Jesus.